They're so wanky they have to have a rescored section because they're fucked up.
Yeah. Not only should they
Oh,
rescore it, but then there should be like at least a two paragraph write up about how Owen's a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? Like, oh, by the way,
amongst
he
many,
did
many
more. And
others.
yeah, yeah,
Who are you going to get to write that?
yeah.
Another fucking idiot.
Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. Andy and John here, as always. And as always, we are going to dig into a track today offered up by John. I'll go off, give it a listen. We're going to come back and discuss it a bit further in detail. John's going to take me to school a bit, I would imagine. But in order for all of that to commence, I'm going to need to know the artist and the track.
Okay, we're going back to the well of PJ Harvey, and we're on to the next album. So the next track. This is a track called "This Mess We're In."
That's where see how big of a mess it truly is. I will only figure that out by going off and giving it a listen. So let me part ways with you for a bit, and I will return and let you know. That almost reminds me of About a Girl by Nirvana. I mean, not the same, but akin to it at the very least. Anyway, let's take that back. That kind of struck me right out of the gate. Oh, keys.
Can you hear them? The helicopters. I'm in New York. No need for words now. We sit in silence. You look me in the eye directly. You met me. I think it's Wednesday, the evening, the mess we're in, and the city sunset over me. The city sunset over me. Night and day, I dream of making love to you now, baby. Love making on screen, impossible dream. And I have seen the sunrise over the river, the freeway, reminding of this mess we're in. And
Okay, I love this. This sounds so goddamn good, and I'm a sucker for Thom Yorke's vocals anyway. And that and this sort of narrative that he, for the most part, but they are describing, sounds like one of infidelity. They're together in the evening. They allude to the mess we're in. Then in the next verse, they are together in the morning. Sounds like. Um, and again, an allusion to the mess we're in. Interesting. I know it's so simple, but that little click tracky, like rim and hi hat work is really nice. And I like the way they cut out the drums in the first verse to just like create the focus on the narrative. And then they slowly reintroduce it after that. What I think is just that first refrain where they're both singing together, and his like that high falsetto that he often does just sounds so good to me. I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, this is I'm already really digging this. So let's kind of let's take it back a little bit and then press on from there.
Making on screen impossible dream, and I have seen the sunrise over the river,
Like the sunrise
the freeway,
morning.
reminding how this mess we're in, and city sunset
It's keys again. Little piano bit. It's pretty.
I just wanna say, don't ever change. And thank you. I don't think we will meet again. And we must leave now, before the sun rises over the skyscrapers and the city landscape comes into being. Sweat on my skin. Oh, this mess we're in.
Wow. Yeah, I thought that was really beautiful. It had this very somber, moody quality to it, which I think fits it perfectly if my uh inference is correct. If the inference is correct here, where like I think this is a song about infidelity. Um this idea that they'll never see each other again. They thank each other and then sort of part ways, and realizing that the mess they're in, I assume with their significant others, perhaps is what the scenario is. It's a really interesting narrative. Excellent vocals. Taking nothing away from PJ, but Thom really shined in this. But this is a great song. I love these kind of songs where like it's a story being told. It's like this short story, um, a little tiny musical novella, um, and your mind can sort of wander about what is it about because it doesn't explicitly tell you. But there's enough detail in there that you can extrapolate information and kind of start crafting your own assumptions about what's going on there. Piano is really lovely, subtle but excellent. That again, that drum clicking was just in my head. I loved that. As simple again as it was, um, that really kind of gritty, but again subtle. That's probably the best way to describe all the music that's happening in here. Guitar work that was going on there. Those chords. They had a little bit of dirt in there, a little bit of just a little bit of grit, which this is kind of a tawdry situation, if I'm right. So that makes sense as well. Um, yeah, this is high up there on my uh affinity list for PJ Harvey tunes. Like I think this might be my favorite. I will have to go back and listen to it and some of the others that I also thoroughly enjoy, but there's so many things about this that I really like and that I think are evocative. and thought-provoking that it was an instant hit for me and had just the right amount of like moodiness. So, John can tell me more about this collaboration and maybe the meaning of the song, and I can tell him how much I enjoyed it. So let's get back to him.
Call me Snake Plissken. He's back. So you've had a listen to the mastering. I may not have mentioned that perhaps there's somebody else featured in this that you may or may not recognize. Didn't want to spoil the surprise. So what do you reckon?
Well, you didn't spoil the surprise, but the name underneath or like the title that was added
Oh
to
yeah,
the
of
video that
course.
was uploaded gave it away. So I did
Bunis.
see, yeah. But it didn't take away from my the pleasure of listening to it because as you kind of alluded to a little bit there, I am familiar with Thom Yorke. I love Thom Yorke. I love Radiohead. Um, and there's this fucking haunting quality to his voice that I don't know, it draws me in. He's like a male siren because whenever he sings, I just get like he instantly captures my attention. There's this weird moodiness to his voice that always gets me. But anyway, I'm not here just to talk about Mr. York. I'm here to talk about this song in general. And things open up with this like click tracky like drum beat that utilizes the snare, kind of like the snare rim and the hi-hat work that you get. And there are these guitar strums on this chord progression over the top of it, a chord progression that to my ears at the very beginning, at the very least, I mean, when they started to build around it, it became less the thing that stood out, so I didn't focus on this as much. But for some reason, it kind of reminded me of About a Girl by Nirvana. And the way the chords go bounce back and forth from one another, in that it's had a similar quality to it. It also had a little bit of that like subtle grit and dirtiness to it, the feel of these chords together, and I like that. And as I progress with my synopsis here, I think that feeling that I got is interesting because it pairs well with the kind of dirty nature of the narrative, if my assumptions are correct about that. So we'll get into that as well. So after all that, sort of, I digest that a bit. Then there appears these really interesting keynotes, and they add a little bit of texture to the song and spark a little bit of curiosity in me as well. I like them. They're everything about this song musically is very subtle and intentional, and I love that. It's not ham-handed, where the musicians are just throwing their talent in your face, and hitting you over the head with it. It's kind of more just like you listen and you just feel that every decision musically was a deft one, and has a purpose. So as soon as the vocals drop in the first verse, I know we're getting some Thom Yorke here. It's confirmed. It wasn't a lie. And I love that. And yeah, we're there's no real surprise here. He sounds excellent. He has that like airiness to his voice throughout this. And as he progresses, he does the falsetto shit, which he's done plenty of times in Radiohead stuff and other songs that he's appeared in. Chef's kiss, loved it. So York begins to paint this picture of being in New York with the person to whom he's addressing the lyrics, and there is a somber quality to the mood that's kind of being painted as the story unfolds. And about halfway through, um the toms, not the drums, not York, slowly begin to thud beneath the guitar and the vocals, almost like stuttered heartbeats, which I thought was really cool because this verse, I believe, starts with sans drums. Like they cut out before this verse, which is a really cool tactic too that we've kind of talked about, like building verses back up and not making them the same musically verse to verse to verse. So I really enjoyed that, and the stuttered heartbeats is interesting. I'll get to that a little bit. So I might be stretching this a bit, but I found it really interesting that those drums came in just as York delivered the line, "We sit in silence." Because if those drums were in fact intended to mimic heartbeats, as I sort of observe them to sound. That would be really clever decision making, because the scenario of the two people sitting and not speaking would allow for the idea or the feeling that the one thing you could hear in the midst of the silence is your own heartbeat. So I thought that was like, fuck, that's genius if that's what they were going for. And I really, really like that. Then as the verse finishes, Yorke does some of his like classic falsetto driven vocalizing that I alluded to earlier, as PJ makes her first vocal appearance in the track to deliver that sort of placid refrain of "the city sunset over me." And this is all coupled with the return of that judiciously placed key work that I mentioned earlier. The second verse commences, and it does so with the return of that click track like drum beats, which didn't appear in the first verse if I'm not mistaken. And that also has like this interesting effect where it almost sounds like the hands on a clock or a watch, like audibly ticking and counting down the seconds. Something that also can be heard in silence. Like if I sit silent enough, I can hear the second hand on my watch click, click, click. So that was kind of like heartbeat, time passing, this thing that fills the void of awkward silence or uncomfortable silence. Loved that as well. So also, again, very clever if intended. Maybe I'm just overthinking this. Yorke goes on about his desire to make love to the person now and on screen if he can, which is like a bold ask. But then also alludes to this mess that they're in as he watches the sun rise, which is seemingly a different time than what was mentioned in the first verse, which I believe unfolded on a Wednesday evening, if I caught that correctly. So it's beginning to sound more like an issue of infidelity, where two people met on a Wednesday evening, have copulated that night, and now as the sun rises the next day, it sort of shines light on the truth and the mess that they're in. Enter the second chorus, and the end of which we get treated to this like swirling music motif that is carried by the keys, and this lasts about 30 seconds or so, and then the chorus repeats. And after the chorus, there is this interesting bit of dialogue between the characters of our story, and in this bit it is conveyed that while both of them enjoyed each other and their time together, they even say thank you, which that's an interesting thing. They must part ways, likely never see one another again, because of this mess that they're now in. And that, through inference and implication, is a mess of their own creation. The chorus repeats, and then the song brings itself to a quiet but somewhat ominous and unresolved ending from the narrative standpoint, which I really enjoyed because it like leaves its open-ended, which allows the listener to interpret or inject personal experience or whatever into the story, the bones of the story that they've given you. My only minor critique of this otherwise excellent song would be, and this is how much I liked it, to sit down and think about this, because if it wasn't this thought-provoking, I wouldn't have even come up with this minor critique. But so in the first verse, they're meeting in the evening, and therefore the lyrics of "the sunset over me" makes complete sense. However, I would change "me" to "us" to underscore how they are together in this mess. Then in the second chorus, I would suggest the lyrics be changed to the city sunrise over us," since the verse that preceded it illustrates their predicament the next morning. So it's the sunrise rather than the sunset. And then in the final chorus, after the dialogue between the two characters, where they agree to part ways, I would have changed the words to "the city sunrise over me" to emphasize or underscore how they've gone their separate ways and they are now an island unto themselves. This is silly thing to dispute, but I think it would like underscore the transactions and how things have progressed over this, I don't know, 18-hour period or whatever we're working with. But other than that, which is a minor qualm, and you all can laugh at me, I thought this was a stellar story told over top of really moody music that utilized certain sounds and musical decisions that only enhance the narrative. I really loved this track for its short story nature and how evocative it was, both musically and lyrically, and how musically and lyrically they were tied together with some of the decision making that took place there. This was probably now my favorite song by PJ Harvey that you've given me because of all of this. It's just so, I love the rawness of some of the other stuff and the grit in it, but this is I don't want to make this sound like I'm dissing the other tracks, but this has more of a mature quality to it that I really really adore. The literary part of my brain is being tickled, whereas that was not so much. Not to say it wasn't at all, but not as much in the other ones. This is a real story that I listened to with great music.
Okay, okay. Thanks for that. It's always really interesting to hear your point of view. I would say a couple of things on that. I can understand you offering up these changes, and it would make things easier for you and your narrative. However, I would say PJ Harvey knows what she's doing, and there are no accidents in her songs. So perhaps you need to go back and think again.
Yeah,
But
or
you know,
maybe I don't, and you could just explain explain it to me.
perhaps I'm not going to. So, as alluded, we've done some PJ Harvey stuff before, and there is a playlist which this will be added to. All the stuff about her and how she started and all the previous albums are on there. So go check out those episodes if you're interested, and learn more about her life and her ways and all the interesting stuff that goes on. I'm just going to concentrate on this album and this track. It is significant in her career. So this is from her 5th studio album, Stories from the City, Stories from the Sea, and it was released in October 2000. So we're back to basically a 3-piece. PJ Harvey, vocals, guitar. This is for the whole album, not just this track. Vocals, guitar, bass, keyboards, piano, djembe, maracas, ebo. She was also co-producer and engineer. Rob Ellis, drums, piano, tambourine, synthesizer, keyboards, bells, harpsichord, electric piano, vibraphone, background vocals, and he co-produced it as well. And Mick Harvey, organ, bass, drums, percussion, harmonium, keyboards, accordion, background vocals, and he co-produced it as well. So the three of them, put it together. It's said, and she sometimes denies it, sometimes doesn't, that it contains themes of love, which are tied to Harvey's affection for New York City. So in 1998, she stayed in NYC while shooting Hal Hartley's film, The Book of Life. In this film, supposedly Jesus returns to the earth on the eve of the millennium to kickstart the apocalypse, but he's then taken in by sort of the people around him and fascinated by them. And in this, PJ plays Mary Magdalene. And actually, just coincidentally, Yola Tango appear as a Salvation Army band in the film as well, which I think would be interesting to see. Upon its release, this album received acclaim from pretty much everyone and earned her many accolades, including the 2001 Mercury Prize. And the album spent 17 weeks in the UK charts and has been certified platinum in the UK and in Australia. The album features a duet with radio frontman Thom Yorke. Who'd have thought it? On this track, as well as he features backing vocals and keyboards from him on 2 other tracks as well. She'd met Yorke in 1992 and they'd stayed in contact. And PJ's quote saying, "I've long been interested in the idea of somebody else singing a whole song on a record of mine, to have a very different dimension brought in by somebody else's voice. It adds so much dynamic within the record to have this other character coming in." And I think that's spot on. It really does make this a standout track because of that different feel. It's poles apart from all the stuff that's gone on before. For the album, as I said, she was nominated for the Mercury Prize for the 3rd time. She was nominated before for Rid of Me and To Bring You My Love. And the awards ceremony was held on the 11th of September 2001. Harvey was in Washington, D.C., and on that day had witnessed the terrorist attacks on the Pentagon from her hotel window. She was announced as the winner and accepted an award by phone, saying, "It has been a very surreal day. All I can say is thank you very much. I'm absolutely stunned, and I think she was still stunned by what was going on, and not really. That it's a very strange thing to happen on that day, you know. Um, and the
And an
win actually,
interesting perspective for her too, as a non-American, to be
yeah.
like here when that happened. And I would love to know her perspective on that, because I know how my fellow patriots feel about that, but it just, I'm sure she was like, what in the world is this?
Well, she did get into that's another album or two down the track, but yeah. Anyway, the win actually made Harvey the first female artist to win the Mercury Prize at the time. The album received
How
a
long have they been giving
Metacritic
out Mercury
score.
Awards before that, John? Like that she was the first woman in
Uh,
2001.
yeah, the Mercury Prize, first one was Screamadelica, I believe. So what's that, 1990? Oh, God, I should know.
Okay.
So it's not a huge amount of time, but even so.
Yeah,
There's a third time nominated. She should have won it before, really, for Rid of Me. I mean,
yeah.
honestly. But, you know. So, yeah, it received a Metacritic score of 88. However, there's always a fly in the ointment. Spencer Owen, I rarely name reviewers because I don't think it's worth my time, but I'm going to this. Spencer Owen of Pitchfork viewed the album as lacking in distinction, saying the sheen gets slicker and the music gets duller. The publication later, however, ranked it in their top 200 albums of the 2000s list, and in 2021 they included it in their rescored list, saying they wish to change their original score of 5.4 out of 10 to 8.4. Still not high enough. And they're so wanky, they have to have a rescored section because they're fucked up.
Yeah. Not only should
Oh,
they rescore it, but then there should be like at least a two paragraph write up about how Owen's a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? Like, oh, by the way,
amongst
she
many,
did
many
all this.
others.
Yeah, yeah,
Who are you going to get to write that?
yeah.
Another fucking idiot. Anyway, enough about that. So, in 2002, Q magazine named Stories from the City, Stories from the Sea the greatest album of all time by a female artist. In 2006, the album was chosen by Time as one of the 100 best albums of all time. In 2009, NME placed the album inside their top 100 greatest albums of the decade at number 6. In 2019, the album was ranked 19th on the Guardian's 100 best albums of the 21st century. And in the 2020 version of Rolling Stone's 500 greatest albums of all time, it was ranked number 313. The album was also included in a certain little book called 101 Things You Can Do with a Dead Cat. No, with 1,001 albums you must hear before you die. And there's Deborah. And so I just so happen to have a copy. And here we are.
Always does.
On the same page as Badly Drawn Boy, there is PJ in all her glory. I always like to look the other way, as they say. Erica Badu, Mama's Gun, is on the next page, but then says Coldplay, so you can't have everything. They're all shit. If you go back this way, oh, Elliott Smith, that's cool. Linkin Park, that is not cool. And then you've got Kid A as well, talking to Mr. Tom, and U2, as they say. Limp Bizkit, hell no. What a time to be alive. So you go, right, let's get into the lyrics. So as you heard and indicated, for the most part, it's Thom Yorke, and PJ punctuates it really and adds this sheen to it. Can you hear them? The helicopters. I'm in New York. No need for words now. We sit in silence. You look me in the eye directly. You met me. I think it's Wednesday, the evening, the mess we're in. And oh, and then PJ, the city sunset over me. The city sunset over me. Thom Yorke, night and day, I dream of making love to you now, baby. Love making on screen. Impossible dream. And I have seen the sunrise over the river, the freeway, reminding of this mess we're in. Oh, the city sunset over me, the city sunset over me. And he said there's that really nice instrumental break. Everything is contained, everything is deliberate. It's really, really well done. And this back in with the city sunset over me, the city sunset over me. And then you get this sort of cross pollination of the lines. where PJ talks and Tom sings, and sometimes it's repeated, sometimes it's overlapped, sometimes it's well lagging and then catches up again. Really interestingly done. What were you wanting, brackets? What was that you wanted? I just want to say, don't ever change now, baby. I'd like to thank you. I don't think we'll meet again. And you must leave now before the sun rises over the skyscrapers and the city landscape comes into view. Sweat on my skin. Oh, this mess we're in. Oh, the city sunset over me. Repeated 4 times. I think that some of this is metaphor, in terms of relationships with where you are in your life and with places as well. And there's an obvious romantic connection between two people, but I think it's blending different things together to give this like sort of mini narrative, as you say, over a short period of time. It's just really interesting, and I think, oh, we said this before about other stuff. It's opaque enough that you can actually put different narratives into it. And it's evocative though. I mean, why would she put in the sound of the helicopters as well and stuff like that? I think it is also probably talking about her aspect of the time she spent in New York City as well and what she liked about it. And it's interesting you say about the silent bits. And I don't know, so like picturing her in a really plush apartment, like high up, and big thick windows, and all you can hear is a ticking of a wristwatch or something like that. That'd be a really weird experience in New York, and you'd have to get down and out and into the dirty streets to feel the place. That's all good stuff. So according to PJ, it's very different musically to the first couple of albums. It's very melodic and it's much rounder and fuller. The earlier albums were very black and white in some sense, very extreme. Not kidding. Melodically, this is much more sophisticated than those records.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like a combination of every album I've made so far rolled into one. So yeah, as she hinted there, the songs were also only obviously from what you've experienced with this one, the songs were a departure, a growth from her previous dark material. I would say that this album is very accessible, in terms compared to, I feel all her albums are, but I think for the casual listener, this one is the one, and it was the biggest success for her. Harvey told Q magazine in 2001, I wanted everything to sound as beautiful as possible. Having experimented with some dreadful sounds on Is This Desire and To Bring You My Love, where I was really looking for dark, unsettling, and nauseating making sounds. Stories from the City was the reaction. I thought, no, I want absolute beauty. I want this album to sing and fly and be full of reverb and lush layers of melody. I want it to be my beautiful, sumptuous, lovely piece of work. And then, for someone who scored them 5.4, Pitchfork compared her voice on the lead single Good Fortune to that of Chrissie Hynde, while the Los Angeles Times observed that her singing often recalls Patti Smith and Susie Sue, Susie and the Banshees, artists who, like Harvey, project a sexuality derived from, yet never bound by, rock's male sensibilities. I think that's actually quite an interesting quote for Pitchfork. So yeah, this album is great. It's not my favorite, but it's probably the one I listen to the most because it's the easiest to listen to of the ones definitely the ones you've heard so far. And they did give, she got this almost mainstream acceptance. I mean, not quite, but yeah, she was definitely sort of known to the average punter more than just the diehard fans, and it was a real sort of leap up in sort of her exposure to everybody. Yeah, really important album.
Yeah, this is a really, really good tune. I love this a lot.
And there's great songs off this album. Really, really great songs off this album. I could have picked 3 or 4 different ones, but I just thought it would be a blast to hear Thom Yorke as well.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty hard to get Yorke on this channel, considering how much experience you and I both have with him. So I'm glad that this one had slipped through my cracks and that you had brought it to the channel, because not only for what he brought to the table, but the song as a whole was very clever and cinematic and it told a story rather than just played a song.
Yeah.
It did both of those things, and I always appreciate that in a tune.
And to be honest with you, I mean, what their voices work really well together.
Yeah.
You know, but also I think that this music, this framework, really sets his voice up beautifully. I mean, she could have done a better job. You know, it's
Yeah.
or picked his voice for this music, but either way, whichever came first, chicken or egg. But either way, just worked perfection.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. I shall wrap things up there. Thanks for listening to Sunday.
Thank you.
Folks out there, tell us what you think. If you like this song, please hit the like button and please drop some comments and let us know about this song, this album. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you and all your thoughts and opinions about the melodic qualities of this song. Perhaps that would be interesting to know. Yeah, if you haven't subscribed already, please do think about it. It really helps the channel with everything we do, and we do appreciate everybody who does support the channel. That being said, thanks so much for watching. I will see all of you in the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.